That's okay, it's too late.
Hi, welcome to the next GlenAllachie tasting. You're with myself and Juliette.
Hi, guys.
And what we're doing here tonight is maybe something just a little bit different to what we've done previously in the past two tastings. We're going to ask each other questions and hopefully get some questions from yourselves, focusing more on maybe the unseen bits of what it's like to be a whisky ambassador or working within the whisky industry, you know, our sort of most embarrassing bits or our favourite bits, and explain a little bit more about what our role really involves that may not just be the odd post on Facebook or the fancy post on Instagram or whatever it is. So we'll crack on for about an hour. We'll drink a couple of drams as well, and we'll generally just see how it goes. But yeah, I'll pass over to Juliette here. First question really from me is to just explain to me and to the people watching is that what your specific role is and what it is that you do.
Perfect. Right, so hi everyone. My name's Juliette Buchan. So some of you would know me, others won't. So if you're wondering for a start where this wonderful accents come from, I'm actually French, so you'll excuse my English and my accent, but yeah, born French and Scottish from heart. So what do I do at GlenAllachie Distillery Company? I am a sales manager, stroke whiskey ambassador, but really the job we do with Ronan has got two facets. So the whiskey ambassador role that you will know us for is going around traveling and promoting GlenAllachie, so spreading the GlenAllachie love to different markets. So I'm personally responsible for Europe, for the whole of Europe, and the second facet really is sales manager. So we're here to drive sales through appointed distributors. So we also have a role of selling, trying to get the numbers, liaising with the distributor, and so on. So we may have sometimes some more difficult conversation. And what about you, Ronan? Then can you tell us?
Well, I'm very good at pretending to do stuff while actually not really doing anything. That's probably my main role, is looking busy while not actually being busy. But yeah, in all seriousness, very sort of similar to yourself essentially in the whisky ambassador side, and sort of trying to be a representative of the distillery, the brand, the whiskies that we're producing at whisky festivals and stuff. My market in itself is now Asia, or Asia and Asia Pacific. So Japan, China, Taiwan, Vietnam, Malaysia, and then all the way then down to Australia, New Zealand, and then as far west from there as Israel, Lebanon. But yeah, very, very similar. The tendencies between whatever markets you cover don't really differ that much in the actual role that you do. I think when you're a whisky ambassador, you're a whisky ambassador, and but I often find that you end up not only being an ambassador for, say, the company that you're working for in GlenAllachie, but you end up becoming more of an ambassador for Scotland. And people asking what Scotland's like, I'd love to go there. And then you suddenly work for Tourist Scotland and you're telling them how brilliant it is to go to Scotland. So it's a real...
Yeah. But it's very true. I think that's why Scotch whiskey is so popular as well, because you're not just selling Scotch, you're selling Scotland. And it's seen as this idyllic country, which it is, not in winter, but most of the time it is quite idyllic. So I suppose because I am covering Europe, most of the people that I meet will have been to Scotland, a great number of them anyway, and they absolutely love Scotland before they even love Scotch. So the two are really linked. And looking at the people today, if I may, I mean, I'm looking at the names of people who've connected, and And we've got great advocates of whiskey in general in GlenAllachie and in Scotland. So I've got Roloff from Netherlands, Vera Peters from Belgium, Andre from Lorenzac from Germany. So many names, UK, Duncan. So Duncan's always here, Duncan Mattia, if I sound properly, Chris Laurier, and so on. So it's great to see all these people coming to join us. We miss you all, promise. I don't know if there's people that...
I was noting actually somebody was crying over the fact they don't see me in Europe anymore. It's always nice to feel appreciated from someone. Now that we've been in lockdown for nearly 3 weeks, I think my partner's starting to get by me. So it's nice to see that someone actually is missing me or wanting me to be anywhere. Thank you, Han.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's just me. You're cutting off a bit, Ronan. So I'm hoping it's only me, not for everybody.
It's probably my Wi-Fi once again.
Yeah. But... Okay, which is funny because you are in a big city. I'm in a little town, and my Wi-Fi is better. Well, that is when my son didn't turn it off 5 minutes before the show. So yeah, there's starting to be some tension in my household at the moment, especially 5 minutes before the show. So yeah, so maybe, I mean, we'll continue the conversation, and I'm hoping that people will bring questions, especially people who know us. So again, looking down, I've got Michelle Lovett, was great advocate, Fabio from Italy, and so on. So, bring your questions. But while you bring your questions, maybe we can have the first dram. I just don't
absolutely.
Don't like speaking without a glass in my hand. So do you want to introduce the first dram, Ronan?
Yeah, absolutely. The first dram we're trying is the lovely GlenAllachie 18-year-old. So 46%, non-chill filtered, no added colour. A lovely dram and a nice, well-balanced, fruity dram, I find, to get us going this evening.
I quite like the level of your bottle. Mine is nearly empty, but yeah, fantastic dram. So it's one of the core range. Just opened
it before the tasting.
Yes, actually, there's some good points about being in lockdown. We've had to get samples from the distillery to keep at home, so to do this kind of tastings. So there are some benefits. But it's lovely. The nose is fantastic. It's soft, fruity. It's a typical Speyside whiskey. You mentioned the strength, 46%. So it's always unchill filtered, any GlenAllachie unchill filtered, and always, natural color. So you can see lovely golden color, bronze. So I don't know how many of... Sorry, I don't know how many of them or of you out there will have a dram of 18. If you can join us, do. If you have anything else, just grab a glass. Doesn't really matter if it's not the 18, but if you do have the 18, that would be superb.
So while we're trying this, I think I've written down what questions I was interested in asking. And what I've got here is one that I've sort of often asked to people say close to my family and stuff. But what would be your best experience within the sort of whiskey industry and being a sort of whiskey ambassador and being able to travel around Europe and the world? What was the sort of best experience that would come to mind doing this job?
It's a really interesting question, and there's so many different answers to it, really. There's two things. Well, there's three things I like in life. The first one, I would say, it's people. So part of the job is meeting people, and that's fantastic, meeting people from different backgrounds. And we've got the opportunity to meet fantastic people, like-minded people, and sharing drams with them. So it's a fantastic setting to make friends along the way. The second thing I really like in life is traveling. although I absolutely hate planes and airport. So I don't like the journey, but I love the traveling. I love being away and discovering new culture. So that's part of the job as well. And the third one is actually whiskey. So it does help when you do like whiskey to do the job we do. And some of the best experience are with the traveling. I've been to fantastic places. One of the most memorable one, I would say, for me was South Africa. But places like Belgium, Italy, France, Germany, I shouldn't even name any place, because if I don't name your country, you'll be annoyed. But Europe is a fantastic place to be. It's a fantastic continent, so diverse. And moments like having a beer with Belgian friends and having a pizza after a show with Fabio and so on, it's fantastic experiences. So I suppose you would have similar experiences as well. What's the best for you?
I've got some very similar experiences in that sense, and there's some great moments. The best one that really sticks out for me, it's been back a couple of years now. Was in Switzerland, and the importer in Switzerland decided to take us up Mount Lucerne. We were in Lucerne for the whisky shifts, and Patrick, a guy named Patrick, says, right, we'll go up Mount Lucerne on the sort of time that we had off. So it was myself, it was Andy Bell from Arran Distillery, and then it was Scott Adamson from Tomatin Distillery, and it was just quite a surreal thing. You had three Scottish guys all wearing shorts and t-shirts going up the Alps, as I like to tell people, and these Swiss people that were all wrapped up in jackets. And so we went up, and we were on the cable car on the way up, and in typical sort of Scottish fashion, in a cable car, well, we'll shake it a little bit, see what happens. And I don't think we'd even got halfway up the cable car before the bottle of whiskey got taken out of the bag, and we'd cracked open a few drams, and next thing you know, we're only halfway there. The first spot we get to is the bar, a couple of beers, we jump in the next cable car, we go up to the top, and then we open up a dram on the top of Mount Lucerne. Essentially, we climbed the Alps, is again what I really tell people. And just sort of, when you're at a whiskey show and this is the sort of side bit that you've managed to do in your spare time, and it's probably something that I would have never have done ever in my life if it wasn't for working within whiskey. So to be up there and enjoying a few drams with some close friends within the industry, it was one of those moments that makes standing at a stand for 12 hours quite worthwhile.
It's true, and there's no better place than the Alps. That's where I come from, not the Swiss one, but the French one. So I do agree, it's a fantastic setting. Just looking at a few questions here. Question about the 18 years old. Vera Peters from Belgium is asking why the 18 years old is a bit more difficult to find than other GlenAllachie. They are limited editions, 500 cases in the world, and as you know, the older the whiskey, the rarer it is. So there's not many distilleries able to release 18 years old. There is a few, but not so many. And the quantities we have of 18 years old is not as much as a 12 or a 10 years old. So that explains. It's a bit rarer, it's limited, but it's definitely worth it. I absolutely love the nose on this one. You've got lots of vanilla, but you also have the sherry coming through, and a bit of the spices, the ginger and the nutmeg on the nose, and a bit of dusting of cocoa powder. So it's superb.
I often describe the 18-year-old and having this sort of chili chocolate sort of combination, that it's got this dark cocoa ness to it, but also this just little hint of spiciness as well. And because it's so well put together, that you would often think those flavours are one and the same together. They're not two separate flavours. They're the combination of the two. I was also looking at one from Hugh MacPhail. I'll just pick out the easy names. From Hugh MacPhail, what was the first whiskey we released from GlenAllachie from the new takeover? is that right? Have I read that right? What was the first whiskey
Yeah.
you released since the new takeover of GlenAllachie? Any significance to it?
Do you? Well, I think it's a very interesting question. Both actually, Ronan and I were not here at the very beginning of the GlenAllachie journey. So I arrived about 18 months ago. Well, maybe not as much as that, actually, about whatever, just over a year. And Ronan, you joined in July, if I'm not mistaken.
Can't say how much it'll need in July, August.
Yeah. So we're
remember.
quite newbie, and we wouldn't have really been part of the first release. But the first release, I remember it because I was, watching as you do when something exciting starts. You kind of watch and just in case. So I was watching, and they released the anniversary bottlings. So it was different cask, all single cask in a 50 cl bottle, and white label, so very unique, very limited. Unfortunately, I couldn't tell you exactly which ones were the cask, but that was very important because it was a milestone. It was 50th anniversary of the distillery itself, because the distillery was built, started being built in 1967, but first distillation was 1968. So the anniversary bottling was done in 2018. And I would say May, if I'm not mistaken. But again, I wasn't here then.
Got another quick one for you there. Sipping the sherry butt handful tonight. This comes from Russell Brinklow. He says it's sublime. Well, that's good. Do you have a favourite GlenAllachie just now?
A question for you, Ronan. Do you have a favourite?
I did. I actually do. I'm trying to position my hand. It's just up in the shelf there. It's the 10-year-old Portwood finish that we did from the first batch. It's one I just tasted and I thought, wow, this is a dram I could actually just sit and drink and drink and drink and not really think about it. And then that was probably the top one until I got to actually the new wood finishes that have just been released in the UK and countries around Europe, and was the rye cask.
Yeah,
and I just thought, wow, this is, and it's two, you could say probably two different ends of the spectrum. Of one's really port, really fruit driven, and the rye's got this nutty, oaty, biscuity taste to it that I find, creaminess, and they're completely different flavour profiles essentially. But in terms of what I'm tasting for, if it was my favourite GlenAllachie, those two would be the ones that are fighting it out really.
Yeah.
Right now.
Well, I've got two as well, because you said two. So rather than just pinpoint to one, I would say the first one is the 25 years old here. I mean, it's just, so delicate, so long lasting. I kind of describe it like a wise old man when, you have to let it time to speak. But when it starts speaking to you, it just never stops. And it goes on, and it's full of spices. It's full of vanilla. It's delicate. It's just divine. So I absolutely love this one. And the second one would be the 10-year-old, and the 10-year-old because it's just very versatile. It's you have a bad day or a more difficult day. There's no bad days in our job, but more difficult day. You want to pick me up. Just grab it, drinking neat, and it's lovely. But you can also have it with water in your garden, and it's so full of flavor and a nice eucalyptus hint to it. So it's fresh at the same time. I really like that. And talking about whiskey, then, what is the very first whiskey that you tried, Ronan, and you thought, wow, I just want to know more? Do you remember this one?
So I do. I remember it very, very clear. It was actually the first whiskey I ever tried. Made me never want to drink whiskey again.
Yeah, similar experience.
For legal purposes, I was 18 years old, and I was in Campbelltown, where I grew up, and I was in a pub in Campbelltown, remembering that I was 18 years old, and someone bought a round of whiskies, and he bought me one. It was a single malt, and it was in a pub, so you could sort of imagine the sort of whiskies that would end up in pubs in Campbelltown, and it was not a Campbelltown distillery. It was a distillery from an island, and there's no other distillery on that island, but it's very close to an island that has a lot of distilleries. I'm sure we could all guess which distillery that might be.
No name.
And I tried it, and I thought it was disgusting. I thought, I'm never going to try whiskey again. This is, as we say in Scotland, minging, and I'm never touching whiskey again. So it was only about 5 years later after that I actually started drinking whiskey again, and that's because I managed to get a job in whiskey. So I went from drinking what I found was a really terrible whiskey. Doesn't mean it's actually bad, but I found it was really bad. 5 years till I actually tried my next whiskey and thought, yeah, I actually don't mind this at all.
So the first whiskey you tried, was it more about the taste, the quality, or was it more about the quantity? Because, I mean, for me, the first whiskey was really bad quality. It was a supermarket blend. I was 16 and drank far too much of it. And the next day I swore that I would never touch the stuff again. And it lasted about 12 years until actually I discovered what Scotch whiskey was, what single malt. Yeah. And it was funny because it was well, I can name it. I remember it's Glenlivet 18 at the time. And it was a smell which enticed me. I was working in the perfume industry at the time, and Callum, my husband, was trying some samples, and the smell, I just thought, wow, this is different. And slowly you just take it to your nose, and it was like, oh, should I just try the lips as well? So, slowly you take it in, and that for me, that was a door opening where you think, wow, I mean, 12 years ago, I didn't try the right whiskey. This is a different world.
Yeah, at the time I tried this whiskey, it was a Jura, if you didn't guess. I can't remember what it was, one of their silly names that they've got or had at the time. It wasn't the quantity, because I only had a couple of sips and thought, I can't drink any more of this. It was, at the time, I just thought, I can't stand this. I'd rather be drinking pints of Guinness, to be honest. That was much more my flavour at the time. So I probably said where my drinking habits were at the time, that I was more interested in pints of Guinness than I was of single malt Scotch whisky. But yeah, that was the first whisky I tried, and I swore off the stuff for quite a long time.
Yeah, but you're mature now, so you're fine.
Maturer. I would definitely say I'm maturer. Whether you would...
Yeah, you've got a long way to go. Talking about maturation, we've got a question here from Philip Dixon. What's the strangest maturation you have tried to date? Can I answer this one very quickly?
Sure, fire ahead. I'll pour myself.
I think, but very quickly. So, I think it would be the gherkin one for Germany, which unfortunately I haven't actually tried, but that was, for those who maybe haven't followed, that was the April's Fool from Germany. So they released on their social media a gherkin, a matured GlenAllachie, and some people actually phoned to buy it. So I think maybe that's something for Billy for next year, to try to do a gherkin maturation. But if you've got any strange maturation you've tried?
None that I can remember. I tend to try and forget any sort of not strange, because that doesn't mean they're bad, but of any of the sort of weird and wonderful whiskies that have came around in my time, I tend to try and forget any bad ones or strange ones that I didn't particularly like. I thought, I'll just forget about that. But not overly one that sort of stands out and going, this is it. Now, there's been sort of slightly odd combinations or sort of finishes or second maturations, and where I've thought, well, why would you do that, or what possessed you to do such a thing? But never one that I've went, the wood that you're trying there's, or the sort of cast type they're using is madness, or it's just a bit odd. What have we got there? A good little question, sort of tying into sort of the jobs that we do, I guess. Kirsty MacLeod, which country have you visited that has lasted the biggest impression?
Right. Again, well, thank you for the question, Kirsty. Kirsty's a good friend of mine. Okay. I mentioned, and she works for a competition, but it's not really competition because, you know, the whiskey industry it's a big world and we're all friends. But South Africa, again, for me was the best travel I've ever done. Unfortunately, I don't look after this market anymore. But South Africa was absolutely superb. Singapore as well. I suppose it's a bit more exotic than Europe, but honestly, what we've got in Europe is incredible. What about you? I mean, you go to Asia, so that must be quite fantastic. Or
there's countries that I've visited that I've thought, yeah, this is really interesting. I would have never visited here if I didn't have this job. And there's countries that I've visited that I thought, oh, this is quite cool, and I could spend a little bit of time here. And when it comes to sort of spending time in countries, or sort of going, this is somewhere that you can see yourself living, but you know, you could come back and holiday to, and most of those places are actually in Europe. I used to go quite a lot in a previous job, and I just loved Sweden. Thought it was brilliant. Sweden, Germany, Denmark. I really loved those countries, and then I started looking at the Asian markets for previous job, and then into GlenAllachie. The one country that just absolutely blew my mind, and it might be the city within the country, but was when I went to Hanoi in Vietnam, and it just absolutely blew my mind. Many things, not only like the madness on the roads and how people are driving around roundabouts all different ways, and there's no real sort of traffic control, which is, you would say, is a Northern European, we're quite strict with that sort of thing and acting how you act on the roads and stuff. But then even down to sort of just, this leads me into an interesting story, how I was actually quite knowingly bribed someone to get into the country, although I didn't know I was doing it. This probably could go down as one of those embarrassing situations or strangest situations you were in. But I got to the border of Vietnam and I had a letter from the importer stating that I was coming into the country to do tastings and stuff, and got up to the gate and says, no, you're not allowed in, you need to go to this visa desk. And so I eventually go to the visa desk, and they asked me to pay, it was where I was coming from, they wanted to pay €100 for my visa to get into the country. When I didn't have €100, I had €40, a tenner in Scottish money. So I asked them, do you take cards and I'll pay the full amount? And they just said, no, how much have you got? And I said, well, I've got €40, I've got a tenner in Scottish money, and I've got some change. And he goes, yeah, just give us that. So they took all the different currencies, stamped my passport, and just says, yeah, you've got a visa for 90 days, on you go. Which isn't strange in itself, apart from the different currencies with the sort of visa people. But it turns out, as someone from the UK, or I guess maybe Europe, someone from the UK, you don't need a visa to get into Vietnam at all. You can just enter for 90 days without paying any money. So they must have seen me coming, and I've bribed my way into Vietnam without knowing it. But Vietnam was Hanoi especially, was just madness. It just blew my mind in the way a city can operate, essentially.
Yeah, there's always some very interesting moments when you get to a country, I suppose, such as, your really far-fetched country. I suppose one of mine was when I went to Russia. I was a bit concerned going to Russia, to be honest. I think it was just a bit too far in terms of culture for me. But it's absolutely fantastic. The people are great, but there's still some behaviors that are so removed from what you live every day. So one of the stories is just I fell unwell and basically was just sick all night, couldn't get up, had to do tasting, couldn't really get to it, and ended up calling a doctor. And the doctor came to the hotel because I couldn't move. And I've never felt so. The Russian doctor, couldn't speak a word of English, so I had a receptionist translating. But I just felt that if I had been a horse, it would have been the same, you know. The way I was treated and the way he looked at me, like, you know, you're not dying, so why did you bother calling a doctor in a way? But it was poking and getting the blood, but it was really more like a vet rather than a doctor, and he had his really old tools.
Did he have a gun in his hand?
Well, no, but the syringe kind of looked the same. So you kind of nod and you say, I'm better, I'm fine, I'm going to get up. So, yeah. Just looking back again at question, I mean, thank you to Michelle, who comments on my lovely Scottish accent. Thank you very much. We had another one, which I thought was really interesting from Carl, who is actually asking if we see national differences in terms of whiskey. So I suppose what you mean is, you know, different taste depending on the countries. And there certainly are differences within Europe, but within the world. So what is the typical taste for Asia?
I get it. Firstly, these are all, as they are for any country when you speak about it, they're all sort of general assumptions or general sort of stereotypes for the whole country, not necessarily the norm, or it's just what we would think, not wanting to offend any country or anyone from that country that's viewing in. But I would tend to say light, fruity, fuller flavour, mouth-coating whiskies, for me, tend to be the more Asia preference, categorising the whole continent as one style. But I think that's where not only Speyside whiskies, but GlenAllachie falls in really well, is because we are full of flavour, quite oily, quite a fatty whiskey, but fruit-driven, really, really powerful in the mouth. So that sort of marries quite well with what the typical sort of preference is for that part of the world. I've not encountered, I may be wrong, but I've not really encountered a lot of, say, peat or smoke-driven whiskey drinkers. I think that might mostly come down to the heat or the humidity in certain countries in Asia, and that sort of tailors what you're able to drink.
It's very much part of your culture. So, for example, the peat, you will know, again, very general, but Scandinavia loves peat. But Scandinavia, from a very young age, they eat smoky fish, smoky meat. So it's part of their culture. If you go to 2000 countries, Italy, yes, there are some peat lovers, but it's not part of their food. And they would prefer something a bit softer, quite a lot of vanilla. You know, this kind of creme brulee and the panettone and the softer tones. And you go to Germany. Germany is always a good example for me because they like things quite sweet, you know, very fruity, a lot of toffee. And it's part, I think, of our jobs as well to understand what each country likes so that we can actually tailor the offer we do, because especially at GlenAllachie, we do a lot of single casks. So you need to understand your distributor and the market is supporting to actually give them the right cask or a selection of the cask that you may like. There's no point giving, you know, a very peated whiskey if the country is not ready for that. It's no point giving a very light whiskey in color if the market wants something really, really dark. So it's how you match your market's preferences to what you have in stock. And then I think that's part of the job.
So as time is firing on, I think we should move on to the next whiskey very quickly.
Okay, again, mine is nearly empty. I really need to go back to the distillery at some point. So we're trying one of the MacNairs. So MacNairs, you've discussed that with Ben a couple of weeks ago, and then we Ben and Richard discussed a 21-year-old last week. It's a blended malt, so 4 different malts. There's 2 Islay, there's a peated Speyside, and then the backbone is GlenAllachie to give it some richness. And the one we're trying today is the non-age statement. So it's the youngest of them, and it's also the peatiest in terms of flavor. So not so much in terms of ppm, because the ppm is always calculated at the beginning, or in most cases at the beginning in the malt. But in terms of flavor and on the nose, this one is more punchy. So if you like the peatiness, this is a really good example. This is lovely because the peat come through. It's not actually tamed by the other aromas that you would have in the 12 or in the 21.
So as we're trying this, I'd like to say very quickly that thank you very much for all the questions we're getting in, but there's so many, or there's quite a lot of them, that we're trying to pick out ones here and there. We're very sorry if we've missed any questions that you asked, but there was one that caught my eye that I quite liked, from Adrian Carr. It was a question for us both, but I'll ask you first, Juliette, seeing how I decided to read it out. What is the best route into working within the whisky industry? And this led me on to a question I wanted to ask, really, in that how did you, as a French person, end up working within the whisky, and how did you get to sitting in your house during a pandemic drinking whisky from the start to how was it that you managed to get yourself into the whisky industry?
Well, I would never have thought that I would do that one day, doing a tasting online, stuck in my house. I never thought. Well, it's a long question. Well, it's a long answer, really, but I'll try to make it quick. I never thought I would work in the whisky industry. I came to Scotland when I was 22 to learn English. Not the best decision, really, to learn English, but anyway, especially when you get to Banff. So Banff is northeast of Scotland, and they don't speak English at all. They speak Doric. So I think Farabutju Comfy, my quine is the first sentence I've heard. Anyway, I came to Scotland when I was 22. And decided to train as a French teacher, because that's what people do, or most foreign people do when they come and they want to stay in the country. We train as teachers. And teaching wasn't quite for me. And we then, I started drinking then. But
as most teachers do.
Yes, exactly. Well, you have holidays, but there's a reason for that. So yeah, teaching didn't last very long, and we decided with my Scottish husband. I only have one husband, but he's Scottish. So with my husband, we decided to give.
I was going to ask, have you got a French husband? Have you got a German husband? And
he's watching.
I mean, it wouldn't be like a French person not to have many partners.
That's very stereotype. That's anyway. Offline. So no, we decided to give France a try, and I ended up working in the perfume industry for about 7 years, and then the wine industry for a few years as well. And then when we decided that maybe it was time to go back to Scotland, I took actually my email, and I contacted a couple of companies, but I contacted Gordon and MacPhail. Because we were going back to Scotland, and I thought with my background in wine especially, and in import and export, maybe there was an opening. And it's just a bit of audacity and chance that Gordon MacPhail had an opportunity initially in the office, but they took me in. They took me in, and the rest is history. When you like something, when you're passionate about something, you just work your way through and your way up. So no, it's been a fantastic experience. How did you start then?
I'll answer that after. It was just when you were saying that, when you sort of applied for a job at Gordon MacPhail, and that was sort of it. The one question that I've wanted to ask is what it's like as a woman working within what is perceived as it's perceived correctly as a male-dominated industry. When I first started in the whisky industry, I was about 21, 22, and I thought, to me, that there was a sort of, I don't know, I forget the word for it, but that people weren't believing what I was saying because I was young. And that they thought, well, what do you know about whiskey? And I was like, oh, well, that's really unfair. And then I sat down and thought about it, that, to be honest, I probably don't have it that bad. But what was it like starting in the whiskey industry, 12, 13 years ago?
Yeah.
As a woman, when back then, it probably wouldn't be as a similar thing now, where there are plenty of women and plenty of people from different backgrounds and diversities working within the whiskey industry.
Yeah, but I think for a start, the whiskey industry is working really hard in kind of leveling the number of women in the industry. But the whiskey drinkers still remain, about 80% of the whiskey drinkers still remain men. And as you said, older men. So it is difficult. And I remember the first few tasting I did, especially one in Ukraine when I arrived, and they looked at me kind of, she's pouring, who's going to talk? And I started talking, and it was only men, about 30 men, and they went like, is that really who we're getting? And after 2 minutes, their face changed, because suddenly they realized, oh, wait a minute, I think she knows what she's talking about. Yeah. So it was nice, and it was rewarding, because at the end I had a lot of men coming to say, actually, you do know what you're talking about. I'm like, yeah. And do you have a
backhanded compliment?
Yeah, but then they go, and do you actually drink? Well, yeah. But do you really, really like whiskey? Because they don't believe you. They don't believe that as a woman, and a younger woman at the time, you would drink whiskey. And plus I'm French, so I should drink wine and cognac, apparently. I do drink wine, but I'll leave the cognac to somebody else.
I drink wine and cognac as well, and I have not a French bone in my body.
Yeah, but that's quite interesting what you're saying, because I always think that people drink something which is a bit more exotic. And that's why, yes, some Scottish people drink whiskey, but to be honest, there's not many young Scots drinking whiskey. There's many more young German people, young Belgian people, because it's exotic, because it's something, because it's traveling. You're drinking the whiskey, and at the same time, you're smelling Scotland. This is the peat on the hills. This is, the rough Scottish landscape.
It's growing up as a young Scottish guy and looking to drink and buy alcohol. Scotch whisky was never at the forefront of my mind, for one reason and one reason only. It was quite expensive, and if you ordered one at the bar, you only get a tiny little bit of it. And so, I think the whiskey industry, again, is my belief is that the whiskey industry is doing quite a lot to attract younger people, people who don't usually drink whiskey, into sort of trying whiskey in whatever fashion they try it in. And I think that the way they're trying now, even though I drink whiskey now, which I probably caught me when I was younger, to give it a try and not just stop at that first dram that I tried that I didn't like. I'd have probably continued, because there is an effort to try and appeal to different sort of age groups and sort of categories or whatever. But yeah, I think the exotic thing it does sort of build into it in a way that you sort of don't know what you've got at home and in Scotland, and until you see it around the world, or you see it wherever you go.
Yeah, I think that's true for everything. For what you have on your doorstep, you don't realize. But which is why sometimes you have to go away and come back and realize how lucky you are. But looking back again at question, there was one about peated whiskey. So because we're trying the peated whiskey here, which as I mentioned, there's GlenAllachie plus 3 others peated whiskey in it. We are distilling peated whiskey at the moment. We do that 6 weeks a year. And a question about, do we have any idea of when it will be released? I don't know if you know.
No, I don't know unofficially, and I don't know officially. I've tried it. I think it was just about 2 years old, just over 2 years old. And it was very, very, very good. It was really, really good for the age it was and not being whiskey. But I don't know of any plans. I said, when I tried it, I said you could release this as a peated spirit and people would buy it, people would drink it because it was that sort of enjoyable. But whether you would actually do that or not, probably.
I think we will release it when we actually think that it's at its best. But you're right, I've tried it as well, and it's absolutely superb already. It's maturing very well. But, we have, in a way, the luxury to have a lot of stock, to have, we are financially sound. So as a distillery, we don't feel that we have to release young whiskey just for the sake of getting some cash flow. We will release whiskey when they are ready to be released. And Billy really is, the one who's tasting and nosing and deciding when each cask is at their optimum. So you will have to be patient on this one, but it's going to be superb. So next few years, 3, 4, 5, maybe before. We'll see. Any other questions that you can?
Well, I was just going to very quickly for the question that I asked you, and then you repeated back about how I get into the whiskey industry, and it was something. It was down to sort of pure chance or sort of luck, really. I was away at university. I studied university, and it was a really bang average soccer or football player. I was riding a lot of luck. So I studied out in America on a scholarship, and then I came back to Scotland, and I moved back to Campbelltown, where I've grown up most of my life. And at that time, my younger brother, was working at an independent bottling, and at an independent bottler. That he was working in one of their shops in Edinburgh. So I asked him, look, is there any chance that you get me a shift in the shop? Because I was sick of working in bars and restaurants and stuff. So I went in one day and spoke to the manager of the shop. And then by the Monday, I ended up sort of working in sales for the company and looking after parts of Europe for them. They're based in Campbelltown, so it was quite obvious that it was William Cadenhead that he worked for. And I sort of asked my brother to do me a favour and try and get me a few shifts. And that led me into the sales role, which I didn't expect when I was, I'd have been about 21 and maybe 2-3 months out of uni. And I was just looking for something where I didn't need to work till 1 a.m. in the morning. And then from Cadenhead, it led to sort of working for Springbank. And then I left Springbank and moved to GlenAllachie. So it's not that exciting. It's not inspirational, and maybe what you should do if you're looking to get into the whiskey industry. I wouldn't ask my brother how to get into the whiskey industry. He wasn't that much of a help.
I suppose, you like me, we both got in by chance.
Very much so.
You kind of sometimes have to grab the chance and go on from there. Question, there was a good question about, from Roloff. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce it properly. Is there a bottle to commemorate Billy's 75th birthday? So the truth is that we didn't actually know that it was a big birthday, so we hadn't planned. Billy's quite a secretive man, very humble, very secretive. He didn't tell us, and we hadn't planned for one. So no, but it is a missed opportunity. That would have been fantastic. So, what else have we got? What else have you got, Jeremy? Yeah, go
there's one there. It's from sorry if I butcher your name. It reads Dutch, I guess, but Yuka Carper. Very sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but he says that Billy Walker once said that you don't put water into an expensive cask. While speaking about the fact he didn't always use the 63.5% standard whiskey industry standard filling percentage. And then he asks, is that one reason why GlenAllachie wins so many prizes, I guess? I wouldn't necessarily say that filling at a particular strength has anything to do with winning prizes. But I guess, Julie, you'd be probably more accustomed to explain the first part of the question.
The first part of the question. So in the whiskey industry, there is a standard which has been agreed between the different distilleries, between the different owners, that the whiskey is filled in the cask at 63.5%. So that when you actually do exchanges, you exchange a cask at 63.5% against a cask from another distillery at 63.5%. So they worked out the best strength to fill the cask in for maturation, and that was set at that. But a lot of distillery or few distilleries do not do that. You can fill at any strength you want. So you usually fill either at what we call still strength. So at you feel at the strength that the whiskey comes out, or the new spirit, comes out from a still, or you reduce. That's usually what we do. At GlenAllachie, we decided to do both. So some casks are 63.5% and some casks are not. And when you actually don't add water, when we don't reduce, the more alcohol and the deeper it will go into the wood. That is the theory. Now, in terms of award, I would say, the filling at still strength for some of the cask, we've been doing that since 2018. And the whiskey we get awards for are actually whiskies that have been filled into cask by the previous owner, by Pernod Ricard. So no, it wouldn't have a link, but it will make the whiskey mature differently. So time will tell. Yeah.
And to answer the question quickly, I think this name came up and the person came up a few weeks ago when I was last on. I think you pronounce it Mike.
Michelle. No?
Is it Michelle? Mihai? I think it was Mike.
Oh, no.
The last time I butchered his name. The question was, the peated whiskey we're talking about being made at GlenAllachie.
Yeah.
Is it going to be in MacNair's brand? And I don't necessarily think that it's solely dedicated to go within to MacNair's or to go into anything else. Probably quite undecided, I would say, right now, which is also a very fancy way, or a not so fancy way of saying I don't know. But I don't think it's solely just focused on putting it into the MacNair's brand.
No, I think it will be a single malt, and we haven't maybe quite decided what brand, what name, will it be under GlenAllachie? Maybe not. And it is actually Mihai. So sorry, Mihai. Mihai is from Romania. And again, a very good advocate for GlenAllachie, shop owner. He does a lot for us. So good to have you with us, Mihai. There's other little question. I mean, we're kind of getting short of time here. because as you know, at 8 o'clock, the UK will come out of their house or on their balcony or from their window, and we clap for the NHS, for all the people working very hard to actually keep us safe and well. So we've got a few more minutes. Maybe you wanted another question, maybe for you, Ronan.
Yeah.
What do you like best at GlenAllachie? What do you like most about working at GlenAllachie?
Well, it's changed dramatically in the past 3 weeks, 3-4 weeks. The best thing about working for GlenAllachie now is, one, I'm working, and two, I'm able to sit at home and work and taste GlenAllachie. The best thing about it is probably an answer that would be the same answer for a lot of people that work within the whisky industry. And I never thought that I would be able to travel and visit these places around the world, or see certain things, or do certain things that I've been able to do. So the best thing about working for GlenAllachie is the fact that somehow I'm allowed to go around the world with my Scottish accent and speak about whisky and tell people how great Scotland is, and that they should come there or come here and visit the distillery, visit Scotland. To me, that's the best thing about it, because I tell my friends that this is what I do, and they do not think this is actually a job. They're surprised that I'm actually employed to do that. So that's the best thing about it.
I would just maybe conclude on this to say, it's a fantastic job, and working for GlenAllachie, we've got fantastic product. It's a passionate team, and that's very, very important. But we have a fantastic job, and I'm the same. When people know what I'm doing, they think it's the best job in the world. But I tell you, when it's a weekend and you miss your kid's birthday, or you're stuck in an airport for a few, I tell you, this is not the best job. But we keep on doing it because we love what we do. We love meeting the people, we love the drinks, we love the company we work for. So that's why we do it. But it's not always the easy ride. I think that's how we can maybe conclude on tonight.
I would say Instagram probably paints a better story than the behind the scenes of the whiskey traveller.
No, totally. And you know what? When we have a bad day as well, there's
always whiskey in the house.
There's always whiskey. Good days, bad days. It's a perk of a job as well. So thank you to everybody who joined us. Sorry if we couldn't answer all the questions you had. We'll have a look after, see if we can answer a few by text. But I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed your company, Ronan. We do work together, but actually we don't work from the same place. I work from the distillery, you work from the head office. So we don't often see one another, and it was lovely spending a bit of time with you. So, Slanjava.
Enjoyable spending my evening with you.
Good.
Slanjava.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.